All right, here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sheena,
And I'm Ashley.
and we are part of Women's Therapy Center. And we wanted to come together and spend some time on a topic that is very near and dear to both of us as fellow moms. So, today we want to take some time with a very important concept that's often not spoken about enough. The concept is matrescence. And what this is the becoming of being a mother.
And we made this for you because we know that postpartum mental health is one of the most under talked about pieces of becoming a mom and of a woman's life. And we're here really not to sugarcoat it. We don't really want to scare you either. But if you're struggling, that makes sense. And that's what we're here to support you with.
Totally. You'll notice that the majority of this presentation speaks to an attachment lens. So, what that means is your nervous system, from the moment you arrive, and this will be true for your babe as well, your nervous system has some programming that is developed through the connection to your caregivers. So, this programming, it carries on throughout your life, and it's how we regulate ourselves emotionally and how we connect to ourselves and safety and each other. And we both believe that it's a really important piece of mental health. So we've woven that into the presentation today.
And when we become moms, that is only heightened. It's like cranked all the way up. Our nervous system is really going through this huge shift, and it's also trying to protect a baby as well. So, those old patterns, the way that we were raised, sometimes they just come flying back without our control or sometimes without our awareness, even. You might feel like you're not doing enough, like you're all alone, um, or that asking for help even makes you feel weak. And that's not random, that's part of attachment.
Yeah, so well said. All right, so let's take a peek in a little bit more detail here. So for today, we're gonna, do our best to be as honest as possible. Again, as Ashley already spoke to, we're not here to scare you. You being here and you being you is you already have all you need to tackle motherhood. However, we believe that there's some parts that are going to influence your mental health, and these are some, conversations that we had wish we had had when we were in your position. As a mom, as an 11 and 13-year-old, both boys. We're not experts by any means, but I'd say we're kind of veterans by now a little bit. Hey, Ashley, maybe just with a bit more sleep than you have. Yeah, and again, we've spoken to the attachment lens as well. All right. So matrescence. Yeah, I'll let Ashley get started actually.
So, matrescence, that's basically, like Sheena said before, the process of becoming a mother. So, emotionally, physically, hormonally, relationally, it's kind of like adolescence. Less acne, of course, but maybe more tearfulness, more frustration, even maybe crying on the kitchen floor a little bit.
Yeah, been there. So here's the deal. It's not that you've just had a baby, and obviously, like, that's massive. Can't even capture or that process, that transition in words. And, I fear unless you've actually experienced it, it's something really difficult to actually understand. And if you're almost there, you're already part of the becoming, but it's changed your whole body, it's changed your essence, it's changed the way you attach to the world, it's turned everything up. So it actually is a massive transition as a human, and we believe that it deserves more attention, and you would benefit from learning a bit more about it.
And Sheena, I don't know about you, but sometimes I find that people have a hard time recognizing the connection between their emotions and their brain. We just take things like so personally, we take the brain out of it. But as we go through motherhood and Matrescence, our brain is actually becoming rewired.
Yeah.
So we really need to like take it back to the brain and understand that the problem isn't us. Our brain is going through so much and it's being rewired, which is a lot to deal with. Our amygdala, so that's the part of our brain that detects danger, kind of that fight or flight area of our brain, that becomes more sensitive. So it's really great for spotting threats, not so great for staying calm in the moment or not overreacting or worrying if your baby coughs or doesn't sleep well or if there's a new red spot on them. That amygdala is a really big piece of our nervous system that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really important for people to recognize that this is the first time all of your body is becoming a mom, if this is your first baby. And if it's not your first baby and you're joining us here as a second, third time mother, this information still might be new to you, which will be valuable. So that amygdala is the first time it's been like the sole primary provider for this little being. So it's going to be hypersensitive. It's going to be trying to learn, how to adapt, how to move through the world as the caregiver of another being. And that means that it's going to have to create new pathways for you. And creating those pathways can be really tough and it can be really overwhelming. And unfortunately, the world doesn't come with, even a parenting course, let alone a manual on how to do that. So, being aware of that, being compassionate towards that, being patient with yourself and your body as you move through this really important, transitional time. So we've included tools throughout this presentation, and a lot of them are in consideration of your body and the changes it's going through, because your body doesn't need you to get frustrated or annoyed or overwhelmed. What it needs is this sense of safety and awareness of the change. So the tools, we are hopeful, will be just like little things that you can incorporate into your day to day. There's no perfect way to use these tools. There's no right or wrong. You're going to figure out how they work for you. But even if you find one tool today that you can start to use during this journey, we're hopeful that that'll be enough.
Absolutely. And they're nothing fancy, these tools. Some of them might work for you, some of them might not, but they're things that you can have in your back pocket or your toolkit. They're just real support for you in the moment when you might need it.
Absolutely. Oh, your brain on baby.
All right, well, let's talk about what's actually happening in our brain when we have a baby, because it is a lot. And Sheena mentioned she's a mother of two. I'm also a mother of two girls. And there's been many times where I felt like I was losing it. But again, we're not actually losing it. Our brains are just being rewired, and that's all that's going on. One of the biggest changes is again that alarm system in our brain, that amygdala, and it really just kicks into overdrive.
Yep. So your brain is wired for protection over productivity. So that's why, you can remember the exact pitch of your baby's cry, but you can't remember if you brushed your teeth. It's all why we're always scanning for danger, in those first several months. And that can sometimes, for some of us, depending on your attachment style and your experience as a mother, some people find that they get stuck in that for a long time. And that's where, some other supports through your physician or through a therapist might be helpful. But I think it's pretty fair to say that the majority of mothers in those first few months are all feeling that. Okay. So, looking for danger, worrying, constant worrying, just feeling emotionally overwhelmed. It's because your brain is so busy just making sure that that baby stays safe.
And from an attachment lens, that totally makes sense. If you grew up in an environment where you kind of always had to be alert or you were the responsible one, you had to take care of others, your nervous system is probably very used to being in hypervigilance. It's wired that way. And when you add a baby to that, your system's like, okay, cool. Let's just never relax again.
Yeah. And then it really, that's what's happening from like a nervous system standpoint. And then also in just real life. Like, there's not enough hours in the day to even capture the mental load and the real load of what women are doing as mothers. So, you've got the nervous system piece and then you've got the reality piece, and then you put them together and you're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to feel overstimulated. It's to be expected. So what do you do with that? So, we've also created a document, like a support document to go with this presentation. Both can be found on our website. And in that is these tools in more detail so that we don't spend a ton of time just reading to you here. But just briefly, so if we say it's a somatic tool, we're referring to body-based tools that are going to work with the nervous system. So orienting is something that you can do if you're starting to feel like overwhelmed, anxious, that racing mind. Maybe I don't know, maybe you're at the doctor's appointment and you're in the office and you're waiting and now you're an hour past and now your feeding's coming up, baby's getting agitated, tired, whatever, and you can feel your nervous system respond, right? Now your nervous system thinks baby's in danger. Baby's not in danger. Yes, you're exhausted. Yes, it's overwhelming to be behind when you have a feeding coming up. Those things are all true. But your nervous system, as soon as you go into this like hypervigilant state, it literally believes that someone's in danger. It doesn't know the difference between you being agitated and baby still being safe. So orienting something that you can just check in on your environment. So, you just move your head. I can see the window. Move your head. Oh, I can see a lamp. It's blue. So doing those things brings us back into the now, and it tells my nervous system, yeah, like I'm okay. I can use my senses. I can come back here where I'm now, where I am actually safe. I'm still agitated and annoyed, but I'm also safe. Um, Tool that's referring to acceptance and commitment therapy. And those tools are really good at, well, like the name says, accepting what's going on. Because often it's in the tension of us not wanting to be where we are that, again, our body gets turned on into this response method or mode, I should say. DBT tools. Oh, sorry. And then noticing the mind. Okay, I'm noticing that I'm anxious. This gives us space. How we speak matters. So if I say, I am anxious, now I've attached myself to that response. Whereas if I say, I'm noticing that I'm anxious, I can notice it versus attach to it. I am annoyed makes me feel like I'm just gonna, grab that and become that. I am noticing feelings of annoyance. Again, we want to create that space and then we're not as reactive. Um, Ashley, sorry, am I like missing anything? Because I'm going kind of quick here.
No, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm doing
Okay.
great.
Okay. And then the DBT tool, dialectical behavioral therapy. Tip is a pretty quick and easy one. It's pretty interesting how well this works. And that's just a temperature change. Grab an ice cube, let it melt, go and run your hands under cold water, get a cold cloth, put it on your face. Again, it allows the body to come back into the now. It's like a quick grounding method.
And honestly, these tools might seem small, but they're really working with your body. And that is a lot of the focus of the ones that Sheena just covered was using your body to help control your nervous system. So we'll do some other ones as we go through the presentation, but remembering to work with our body, not against it, is really important. When our brain is constantly shouting danger, you need something that speaks back to it in a nice, calm way.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think allowing your body to know that you recognize that, like, yep, I hear you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know we're feeling this. I know this is happening for us, and I can still try to do something to bring some comfort. Because here's the reality. Being a mom, most of these symptoms in response to becoming a mom aren't going anywhere fast. So you need to start to build in things to help you reconnect with yourself in the moment.
Yeah. And sorry, Sheena, I just loved what you said about like not I am anxious, I am feeling anxious to take us out of the equation. It's not us as the problem.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point. I never thought of that either, right? Yeah, and I hope that the nervous system chat today too will help people understand like we're animals. People often, because we're so evolved, obviously, we're the most evolved animal, but we are animals. So our body it has one primary goal, and that's to keep us safe. Now you've added in this little baby, and if you already have children, now you've got, that's just, you've just asked more of your nervous system. So these anxious responses are to be, understood a bit better. So yeah, it's what's happening to your body. It's not who you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, the breastfeeding struggle. Do you want to start off with this one for us?
Sure, yeah. So this might look like endless pumping, counting ounces. I know that was a big one for me. Crying during feedings, Googling things at 2 a.m. Also, I was very guilty of that as well. Um, But the truth is, it's hard. And it's hard for a lot of people. You're kind of the unicorn if you're like, oh, breastfeeding was so easy for me. The baby just latched like this. That's not the norm, right? People struggle. We need to normalize that. It can honestly feel like your body betrayed you or like you failed. I remember feeling like I was failing my child. I failed as a mother because I couldn't do this or I wasn't good enough. At
Yeah,
the end of the day, I just learned that it was more important that my baby ate, regardless of how they ate.
yeah, I
For
love
me,
that.
that was what helped me do that positive self-talk towards it.
Totally. Yeah, and I remember feeling very similar emotions around it. I really struggled too with feeling like, I don't know, almost like robotic around it. Like I didn't find that connection everyone spoke to, and it didn't feel as bonding for me. All I was that toe curling pain. Like I remember being in so much pain and um, really struggling with like the what's wrong with me around why am I not enjoying this? Like, I think it's romanticized sometimes too. And again, I think at the end of the day, however your experience looks in this is your experience. There's no right or wrong way to experience it. And I think how you really said it comes down to as long as your baby is feeding and being and getting nutrition, um,
Mhm.
like that's the hope, right? But I do think that it's important that we spend some time around how it's often connected to worth, which you spoke to as well. And that from an attachment perspective, it hits really deep. Like it's not just this physical thing, it's an emotional. And the emotion there serves a purpose, right? The purpose is to make sure your child gets fed. Because again, I go back to this in my sessions with clients too. Like we are animals. Our one of our other main goals is to procreate and keep our
Mhm.
population going. So those emotions are also going to pull you towards that, and there's going to be some contradictions there sometimes, which is tough because then again we bring back to worth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And if you didn't grow up feeling nurtured or like that your needs weren't met easily, you kind of have to fight for attention or whatnot,
Mhm.
that can kind of feel in this sense like you're failing too, right? Those feelings start to creep back in from our childhood, which we talked about earlier. And it's really okay to grieve the feeding experience that you hoped for. Most women, I'm not even kidding, will talk about the feeding journey wasn't what they had hoped for. It turned out very different than the way that they had envisioned it. And it's okay to grieve that loss.
Totally.
This was a path that you thought you would take that, didn't work out that way, and that's okay. It's also okay to make choices that support your mental health. So, like reaching out if you need therapy or asking for help, asking, maybe to have someone, a family member, a friend, even a house cleaner come in and do some chores for you so that you can take that much needed break.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, I think the grief piece is really a great place to touch upon because often we are so busy, right? Like we don't even have time to shower. So it's like, oh, when am I gonna have time to grieve? I don't want to be sad. I'll get stuck in the sadness. I'm sure from both of our experiences as clinicians, grief is one of the most cathartic releases you can give yourself. The sadness, it doesn't just go away when you don't enter into it. It gets stuck in the body. So if you are really sad that the breastfeeding, your plan for that didn't go well, like Ashley said, finding time to just sit with that and allowing yourself to feel it and release it is going to be very helpful. And if it's not and you're still struggling with it, like Ashley said, there's ways to get support around that. Okay, so some tools here. I'm not going to go into detail on these ones. They're going to be just for the sake of time. We know how busy you are. So we're not going to, go into things that you can go into yourself. But again, there's some really good tools that can support you through this time because it's a struggle. It is. It's a struggle for most, without a doubt. Okay. So here we are into the mental load of new motherhood. Um,
We're probably getting some nods or eye rolls here. I think I talk about the mental load with my work colleagues all the time. So if you're not back at work yet, just a heads up when you return to work with a baby, that mental load just kind of expands. So this is kind of an area that is really real, but we don't talk about enough. And so we're going to just spend some time going through this together, but just acknowledging that no matter what stage of parenting you're at, the mental load is real.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. When you talk about as with a newborn, yeah, a newborn by themselves requires endless
Mhm.
care, right? You're tracking their sleep, you're tracking their feeds, how many times have they peed, how many times have they pooped? And then on top of that, like developmental milestones, the stress around that, that's like talk about society putting unnecessary stress on mothers, like developmental milestones. That's part of it. Not saying there's not a place for them, but often they are overemphasized and exaggerated, and again, made you to feel like guilty about the timing when these little people are just they'll get there on their own time the majority of time. And then when you add in your partner and like the social calendar and then holidays, like it's never ending. Um, and then on top of that, you're supposed to try and care for yourself too, right? So um, it's real, it's a lot, it's never ending, and it's exhausting.
And it's invisible a lot of the time, right? Like nobody sees all of the pieces of the load that you're carrying. And we often do it in silence. And
Yeah.
that can create some resentment too of like, why do I have to carry all this? Why do I have to do everything?
Yeah, and then when we add the nervous system in there and our attachment, right? So if you are someone who grew up with, I call it good enough parenting when I'm chatting with my clients about this. So, good enough parenting means, I was relatively safe most of the time. I was met with care and patience during conflict or overwhelm, and my needs were mostly met. So, I fear that secure attachment, it's out there. It's definitely, I struggle to say if it's the norm. I wish it was more prevalent than it is. But yeah, secure attached people, they exist for sure, without a doubt. So if you're securely attached, often that means that when you are overwhelmed, when there is this like increasing mental load, you're going to feel the stress of it, but you're probably going to find ways to manage. You're still going to be frustrated. You're still going to be, anxious once in a while, but you're more likely to ask for help because you're more likely to know when you're leaving your window of tolerance, when you're becoming overwhelmed, and you feel okay asking for help. There's not usually shame associated with that. You don't feel like it's attached to your worth. Unfortunately, if you have, an insecure attachment style, avoidant, disorganized, any of those, it can often show up in ways around asking for help, where we do carry shame. We do carry this, I need to control everything, it has to be done by me. And that just increases the mental load because you're less likely to lean into supports.
Yeah. And like you said before, Sheena, when you throw our nervous system into this whole idea of the mental load, it's our nervous system isn't meant to be on 24/7, right? So using some of these tools that we've prepared for you can kind of help reduce that a little bit. We never want it to be on 24/7. You'll never get a break.
Right.
So, use some of these tools. Again, we won't spend time going through them, but they are available. And I would really encourage everybody to practice, one or two every so often just to get them part of your daily routine if you can.
Totally. And I want to mention that with any tool that you're using, you want to do your best to use it the first few times when you are feeling regulated and when you do have a touch of energy. We know that you're never going to have full energy for a long time. Sorry, but it's just the reality of this new role. But you don't want to try a tool for the first time when you're crying at the kitchen sink. Okay, your body's not in a place to learn new things or to really lean into a support. So if you can try, and everything we've given you, nothing is more than like 2 to 3 minutes. So do your best to find a moment here or there. And again, if you're sitting here shaking your head, going, "I don't have a moment," like I don't know what you're talking about, even when you're sitting with baby, like sleeping on your shoulder, some of these are attainable. There's lots. We've given you lots on purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so postpartum anxiety.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Hmm.
This is different than just being a little bit worried. This is really a full body, full mind takeover where your nervous system is basically convinced that something catastrophic is about to happen, but it's constantly that same thought.
Yeah, you're really stuck in it. You're so stuck in it that, you're Googling every symptom, worst case scenario thinking on every little noise. You're obsessively sanitizing things, wiping things down. Someone comes in and they sneeze into your elbow and you want to go wash their shirt. Um, and you feel lost in that, like, and you get these thoughts of like, why can't I just enjoy this? Like, what's wrong with me, right?
Mhm. And again, from that nervous system perspective, this is actually very common and very understandable. Our brain is trying to protect the baby now. And so that amygdala, that danger scanner, again, that's just turned all the way up. It's cranked to the very top. And if our attachment history includes kind of unpredictability or trauma or uh, back to the idea of like needing to be hyper aware of others because maybe we were always caretaking or always the responsible one. We had to manage other people's moods or safety. That level of anxiety might feel familiar, even though it's awful. And
Totally.
our nervous system is really doing what it learned to do
Mhm.
to stay safe.
Yeah, and it's interesting, hey, because when you're like, oh my gosh, why would my nervous system make me feel this way? Honestly, it's doing its best. It's trying really hard to protect you, and it's just literally stuck there, right? I think it's worth also mentioning that intrusive thoughts. So those like, those worrisome thoughts, those worst case scenario, they're pretty common. We know that about 90% of new moms have them, which is high, right? You need to know they're not a reflection of you or who you are or being a new mom. Again, it's your nervous system doing a poor job of trying to keep you safe by thinking of, every possibility that there is. Um, yeah, so here we are. We've got some more tools there. I've used all three of those tools pretty regularly as a mom throughout my journey. You know, just because we're able to sit here and speak to it doesn't mean that we show up perfectly. No one does. No one shows up perfectly as a mom. Um, and I think too, if you're sitting here nodding around like the attachment style stuff and like, yeah, I do. I often feel anxious when A, B, or C happens, or that makes sense. Or I see my partner do that. My partner, as soon as something doesn't go plan, goes really into this like reactive, frustrated, quick state. Again, you're parenting from the model you were given unless you've done a lot of your own deep work and healing around some things from childhood. But yeah, there's no shame in that. That's just like totally understandable, right? So if everyone was doing the best they could, let's start there with parenting. But if you lacked some of that calm, secure parenting style around you as a child, don't be surprised if your nervous system, that's the only pathway it knows. So it might feel difficult creating some new responses to this baby stress, and that's to be expected.
Yeah. And just a word about those tools is like they're not going to cure your
Hmm,
anxiety, but if they can help lessen it, even just for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, that is still worth celebrating. That's 3 minutes that you didn't have to live in a constant state of panic or fear.
totally. Yeah, and being aware of the anxiety is a massive piece of it. So once you're aware of it, again, oh, this is postpartum anxiety. Yeah, this makes sense. Okay, so what do I need right now? Okay, well, maybe I need to take a step back. Maybe I need to see these thoughts as like leaves on a stream passing by so I don't attach to them, right? So I don't fall into this like rabbit hole of, what if my baby's cough means they have RSV? And what if they have RSV? Then it means da, 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 and then I'm at the hospital. And if you just see it going by, it gives you the space to not again attach to it. Um, yeah, there's these little tools. They're helpful, and you just want to be able to continue to support yourself in whatever feels right for you, and hopefully some of them will land. Okay, maternal rage. It's real. It's something. And, again, trying to normalize it in a way that you don't go to your bedroom and cry at night because you lost your cool for 10 seconds. Um, I think welcome to the mom club, and your body is going to become overwhelmed. And often the anger is just a message that you need support and you just need something. Um, yeah, it's not talked about enough, I would say.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
I'm sure, Sheena, you and I could sit and give hundreds of examples of when we've experienced Mom rage, like yelling at our partner for no apparent reason, or the dog, or like clenching my jaw so tight, grinding my teeth at night.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's incredible the shifts that we feel and the things we do, and we catch ourselves later and we're like, oh God, what was I thinking, right? Why did I do that? What's going on?
Yeah. Um, and the thing is, like, I've had quite a few what moments to my kids, right? Like, um, and I think the thing with mom rage is that it often, like, it doesn't appear out of nowhere because you have been probably holding on, building up, you felt the tension, you felt the frustration, all the things, but it does almost feel like a switch goes off and you're just like reacting, right? Um, and then the second it passes, you feel like shame, you feel scared of your response, right? And you go to the what's wrong with me, okay? And this is such a common response for a lot of the women we work with. Like, what's wrong with me, I think, comes into most sessions. Um, but here's the thing: there's obviously nothing wrong with you. Um, it's what's wrong with like everything that women are asked to carry. It's about society asking us to juggle a million things with two hands, asking us to show up perfectly when we do that, asking us to do it with a smile and like love it and just enjoy it and all the things, right? So I think that mom rage is just a very physical response to a very unreasonable request that has been placed upon women.
This slide and this topic of maternal rage just takes me back a couple slides when we were talking about the mental load,
Right.
right? Like my maternal rage often comes out around the mental load. So when things are like boiling over or just stacking on top of my plate, that's when I see, for me, that's when I see the maternal rage, right? And for everybody, it might look different.
Mhm.
But again, if we take it back to that like attachment lens, if you were always raised to be, the good one, the peacekeeper, the happy one, and now you're experiencing this maternal rage, you're probably thinking, like Sheena said, what's wrong with me? And then that sense of shame or guilt creeps in because I've never acted like this before. So the problem must be me. There must be something wrong with me.
Right.
But it's not that at all. We got to take it back to the brain and what's changing.
Yeah, it's just a cue that you're overwhelmed. You're trying to do too much, you're carrying too much. Briefly, I'll try and be brief, but when we talk about the nervous system, you have your window of tolerance, okay? And that's in the middle. And your window of tolerance is when you're doing mostly okay. So you have mostly what you need to get through your days. You're still going to feel stress, you're going to still feel overwhelmed, but you're able to at least meet that with your skills and your values, okay? You're allowed to still access your capacity to move through the world. Unfortunately, when we, especially as newer moms or postpartum, up to that 18-month, and even after, okay, being a mom is always going to require so much of you. Often we're asked to do too much and our body becomes overwhelmed. And when our body becomes overwhelmed and our nervous system goes, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is too much. I have nothing left to give. No more energy, no more concern, no more presence. Like, I need a break. It might send you back, or pardon me, it might send you up to hyperarousal. That's your fight flight response. Sometimes it might send you to hypo, which is shut down, freeze, fawn, people please, flop, like just give up. Um, Often maternal rage is seen as like a fight response. It's your body trying to like take you out of this moment, this system, everything, and kind of, hey, we need more, we need different, we're overwhelmed. Yeah. These tools are also going to give you a little bit of support. Um, Again, please recognize that we are very aware that when you're feeling mom rage and you go into the shake it off, it's not going to all of a sudden dissipate and disappear and you're going to feel like awesome again. The idea is we need to help your nervous system slowly return to your window of tolerance. And hopefully you get to a point where you start to recognize when mom rage is about to arrive. And then you can bring in a tool to give yourself some space and then give your nervous system what it needs so it doesn't feel the need to throw you into that hyperarousal state.
I love that. It's a lot about like self-awareness, right? I notice before I get to that rage stage, is, you might have different telltale signs for yourself. But if you can be aware of those, then you can use some of these or different ones to stop it or to lessen it, right? So then now we're talking about lessening the guilt and lessening the shame that comes from if you were in that full-blown maternal rage stage.
Totally. Yeah. And then also just being aware of how often your body's going there, right? Because if your body has to take you there often, that's a cue that you need more support. Something has to change. Again, you know, as clinicians, we're going to suggest that therapy is a great resource for that. But also just speaking to, your trusted friends, your family, whoever you have access to, about what that's like for you is also a wonderful support. All right, we're moving along here. Oh, the loss of identity.
Probably one of the most disorienting parts of postpartum and the one that nobody warns you about, and that's really the loss of identity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's not like you can just add mom to your bio and move on like nothing changed. Gosh, if it was only like that, hey. Um, well, that's why we're doing a whole presentation on matrescence. And that's a big word, and I'm gonna mess it up more than I'm gonna get it right. But your whole life as you know it has changed. And I struggle with how to capture this so that it's not like negative and like the end of the world sounding, because it's really whatever it is for you, and how you move through that is going to be how you move through that. There's no right or wrong way. Um, but you lose a part of your life, and not in a way that you can't ever get it back. That's not what we're saying, but it is a very distinct transition. And there's no shame in that, and there's no like, but there is some grief in that, right? Yeah.
And in society, we're kind of not really supposed to talk about it. We're just supposed to be grateful that we had a child and that our child is healthy. Um, we're still missing the old parts of us, and we're adjusting to this new phase of our lives while also trying to honor the part of us that was. But my one of my favorite things that I talk to clients about is that two things can be true at the same time. Because we often think very single-mindedly. So if I am upset that I've lost my identity, I can only feel that one emotion. But you can be upset that you've lost your identity, but you can also be grateful that you have a healthy baby. And you can also love being a mom. You can feel both of those things at the same time.
Yeah, I love dialectical thinking. It's such a
Mhm.
like awesome tool to use.
Yeah.
And I think what it does in that example, Ashley, is it says, you know what? I'm allowed to like have reality around both of these things. Like I can take up space in both of these ways. So I can sit here and cry and laugh as my baby's cute. Like I can be crying and laughing. Whatever you need to be. Yeah. And from an attachment lens, again, to bring it back to attachment, if you grew up as a child who lacked like the space to be you because you had to caretake for others, because you had to get out of the way so the parent in your life, could take up their own space, if you didn't have the ability for like a secure sense of self, this can this can hit a lot deeper and more intense. Um, because you're now asking your sense of self that's often based around other people and how they show up to now do that all the time with a little one. And yeah, that's going to be overwhelming. So again, like everything, I think we probably should have mentioned that everything's a spectrum of experience. For some of these slides, you might be like, oh, I'm not really experiencing that. And for others, you might be like, oh my gosh, this is all me. This is all I'm experiencing. um, the loss of identity, it can hit different depending on what your own childhood looked like and what your understanding of identity means to you.
Mhm. And just like you said before, Sheena, about the grief and how that plays a big role in the loss of identity. And it's also the frustration or the feeling lost of creating our new identity as well. So we're on the one hand grieving the person that we once knew, and we're trying to create this new identity. Doesn't mean, like you said before, that our old identity is completely gone or that we'll never get it back, but it's changed, and that's kind of just the truth of the matter, right?
Totally. Especially when honestly this new role takes up every second of every day,
Yeah.
right? So it's the loss of time too. It's the loss of opportunity. It's like the loss of like just having the space to be just you. Yeah.
And the loss of freedom,
Yeah.
right? We sometimes can't just pack up and go to Home Sense or do the things that we used to just do on a whim anymore. That there's a lot of more planning that has to take place.
Yeah. The center of your world has literally shifted outside of yourself.
Yeah.
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 All right. Okay, let's talk about how to actually take care of yourself. We might be asking a lot of ourselves in this slide, Ashley. I don't know. Yeah.
All right. You want me to go, Sheena, or you want to?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you go ahead. Thanks.
So actual self-care,
Mm,
not the Instagram version, right? It's not necessarily going to get a mani-pedi or going to the spa. Self-care can look like something different for everyone. I remember one time a client told me that their self-care is making their bed in the morning.
mm,
So when they crawl into bed at night, it feels peaceful, it feels clean and serene. And so for them, it was making sure that before they started their day, their bed was made the way that they like it.
yeah. So, like, yeah, it's so interesting, hey? Because
Mhm.
one woman's self-care could be another woman's chore.
Absolutely, yeah.
Totally. Yeah, and here's the thing, moms aren't asking for luxury. They just want a moment to be present for
Yeah.
themselves. So, it like simplified, that's like just brushing our teeth, having a 5-minute shower without interruption. For me, and it's still true today, I just want to be in the washroom and not be interrupted.
Mm.
So, like, mom, where's my basketball bag? When I'm in the washroom and like they're aware of that, like they see me, I can't. I need to have one space in the home where I'm allowed to not have to answer a bee. So it's going to look different for everyone. Here's the catch. Unfortunately, our partners and support systems are not mind readers. So we're going to have to, even if it's uncomfortable, be okay with asking for what we need to ensure we can get some self-care in. Yeah.
And the other part of it is like not all self-care feels good at first. Sometimes there's guilt that comes with it. Oh, I can't believe I just took a 25-minute shower or whatever it might be. It might feel awkward or uncomfortable, or sometimes like it's another chore on our to-do list or something. But it's also less about doing things perfectly and more about just showing up for yourself consistently in compassionate ways. Really, that's what it is at the end of the day. It's self-compassion and taking care of ourselves.
Absolutely. And I can't like overstate this enough. You can't take care of anyone else if you're empty. If you're running on empty, it's just impossible. You're asking too much of your body. Um, and from an attachment standpoint, caring for ourselves can be very foreign because often, if you've never really been attuned to what you need or checked in with what you need, and you've been kind of moving through life like 1 minute at a time, you now have this body that's recovering from this, massive undertaking. And then you have this body that doesn't stop, that's not sleeping, that's, producing food, and depending on, where you're at with feeding your baby, producing food for another human. It's doing so much. And now, it might feel new to actually check in and intentionally care for yourself. So if there are feelings that come up with that, totally understandable. And like Ashley said, like just take it one moment at a time, break it down. Like I say to
Mhm.
clients, sometimes you have to go to 1 second at a time, like
Yeah.
one breath at a time. And that's okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
should be
And
expected.
you're not selfish for needing space or needing to take care of yourself. Again, you can't fill someone's glass if yours is empty.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, I think it's important to recognize that it's going to look different every day, and
Mhm.
it's going to look different depending on where the baby's at. Um, and having some flexibility and compassion towards yourself around that. I think it can be counterproductive to fall into this like care expectation routine where you then are like frustrated with yourself when you don't even get around to that, right? So, um, if it's only 5 minutes today, then it's only 5 minutes today. But I think ensuring that it's at least 5 minutes today is a great start.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Again, we got some great tools there for you. That'll be in the guide that goes with this.
Oh, and then when it feels too heavy. So not just the day-to-day heaviness, but when you feel like you're drowning or disappearing, or when you're standing in front of the mirror and you just no longer even recognize yourself anymore.
Yeah. So, postpartum depression, and that's a medical term that's going to require a medical diagnosis, and that's not something that a therapist is able to provide you with.
Mhm.
However, this might look like crying constantly. It might look like feeling nothing at all. It might show up as, intrusive thoughts that are overwhelming or scary, um, including things like, everybody would be better off without me. My baby would be better off without me. And we speak that out loud because there's no shame around those thoughts. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with you for having those thoughts. Okay. Your brain is doing the best it can. And when it becomes super overwhelmed, those thoughts are like solutions. Okay, maybe this part needs to believe this thing so that you can get some relief. So it might become too heavy, and we're here to say that there's so much help out there. No one's going to see you differently or judge you for that or any of these thoughts that come up. Unfortunately, they can be a part of this part of your life. Um, and yeah, so we've listed some supports here. I don't know if I've covered everything here.
I think so. Just like some of those thoughts of like you said, right? I can't do this. I'm not cut out for this. Something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
If any of that sounds familiar to you, if you take one thing away from today, I hope you take away that you're not broken, right? Again, this isn't about you being the problem, but your brain is changing, your body is changing, your hormones are changing, everything is changing that's outside of your control.
Yeah,
You are not broken.
totally.
And those thoughts can creep in when, again, we're talking about postpartum depression or anxiety, even postpartum OCD or psychosis sometimes. But just know that you're not the only one that's ever felt that way before. You won't be the first, you won't be the last. There's a community out there that has felt many of the same things that you're feeling.
Totally. And like we can't say this enough, it doesn't make you a bad mom. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be a mom. It doesn't mean any of those, overwhelming thoughts that might pop into your head when this comes up. Um, and we do need to be clear, like if you ever do have a thought about harming yourself or harming your baby, that's your cue that you need help right away. Like you need to call one of these numbers and you need to tell people that you love and trust that these are your thoughts. And there's so many ways to support that. And yeah, and there's ways through it for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing is like, it's not just psychological changes, right? There's physiological changes and responses as well that's happening. Hormone crashes, sleep deprivation. I don't think we put this in this presentation, but sleep deprivation, huge, huge, huge. That nervous system overload. It's like this perfect storm that's happening, again, all outside of our control. And so again, like if you feel that your need is urgent, call one of the emergency numbers, crisis line, anything like that. There's lots of help available.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not like you've done something wrong. It's not you've missed a step. It's not a reflection of how much you love your baby. It's not any of that. It's just that your body and your mind are overwhelmed. And all you have to say is, I need help. You don't have to have the right words. You don't need to capture it in a certain way. You just need to say it. And you can text it too. There's like the text option there too, which is wonderful. Yeah. All right. Um, that went quick, but I really enjoyed it.
Great.
It's so interesting sitting here almost a decade on the other side of it to revisit it. I even noticed my body at certain slides having a response to some of it. You know,
Yeah, me too.
um, I think there's a lot of trauma attached to being a young mom, depending on your support system, what it
Mhm.
brings up for you. You know, I'm generalizing. Not everyone's going to experience it that way. But some people, it can feel very traumatic and overwhelming. And I hope that for however, it's going for whoever's watching this, whoever you share it with, I hope you know that there's such support in other women and other moms who've been there. I've never met a mom who didn't meet me in my struggle, not once. Um, so, connect with us as well. Like Ashley and I both provide therapy to moms. We really enjoy it. And feel free to share this with someone that could use it.
Mhm. Sheena, what you're just talking about, I was like screaming in my head of like, not every journey is the same. No
Mhm.
two moms have the same journey of motherhood, but we can relate so easily together. Like I remember when my oldest was really little, going to mom groups was so helpful for me because it made me not feel like an island.
Totally.
Right? Like nobody had the same story, nobody had the same challenges, nobody was from the same background even, but we were just able to relate to one another. So if you know somebody that this presentation might speak to, feel free to share it with them. Knowledge is power. So the more people we reach in terms of spreading that awareness and knowledge and validation, the better off all moms are going to be.
Totally. And we're on the old gram, social media. We post I think, some helpful stuff on there and we get feedback that it's helpful. We also have other resources on our website. Ashley and I are always looking for other ways to like connect and support community. So I'm sure we'll have more things coming. This is our first edition of the Mom Files, we're calling it. So you might see us again soon. Feel free to reach out and let us know if you have other ideas for presentations that you would like to see or hear. We just hope you remember you're not supposed to do this alone. You really are not. So, in whatever way you can meet community, we encourage you to do so. Yeah.
So
Thanks, Ashley. I
fun.
appreciate your
Thanks. This is
time.
great.
Yeah, it was great. All right. Take care.
Bye.